Hey guys, my name is Tyler Watson. You're watching the Direction Motivation Podcast, and today we're breaking down why you should quit firing your youth pastors. Let's go. Hey guys, my name is Tyler Watson. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out to watch. If you could subscribe, like our channel, share it with a friend, that would be great. Today, I am breaking down kind of a church world piece, and this is the reality of it, okay? I'm making this podcast special today because I'm tired of churches firing youth pastors because they're not filling the status quo of what's expected, I guess. Number one, I think it should be said that I was in youth ministry for a good while. I've kind of been in youth ministry for 12 years now. I love young people. That's why I wrote the book, Hurt But Not Broken. That's why we got the new book, Not Fatherless, coming out. Like all these things. I live for youth ministry. I am a senior pastor, but along with being a senior pastor, I'm still in the youth ministry world. Youth pastors are kind of my heroes. I love youth pastors. I grew up without a dad, hence the book Not Fatherless, and youth pastors were a big influence on my life. Although there were moments I rebelled, although there were moments that, I probably wasn't easy to deal with, I'm thankful for youth pastors that cared enough about my life that they poured into me in some dimension. And you need to know as church leaders, as people, that these youth pastors, some of them with families of their own, are giving all of their time and energy into investing into their lives and into their future. Now, there's a couple of things here that I want to address, okay? There's some false narratives that have been created. And the first false narrative is that it's the youth pastor's job to save your kids, all right? That is a lie, okay? It is not the youth pastor's job to save your kid. If your young person is not being a good example in their community or in their school, that is not the youth pastor's fault, all right? Nor is it the youth pastor's job to try to make him a good example in the community, all right? That is your job as a mom and as a dad, okay? Or a legal guardian, wherever you find yourself, all right? However, I promise you, your youth pastor is doing his best or her best to be the best influence for the kingdom into your young person's life, all right? I believe that wholeheartedly that's happening, okay? And the reason I'm touching on this subject today is because here at Direction Motivation, we offer churches youth ministry consulting, all right? And our hope is that we can literally change the game for your youth ministries. Now, when I say that I feel like I have expertise in this field, it's because I do, all right? I believe we can reshape youth ministries. I believe that we can help any youth pastor that's struggling, any church that's struggling, and we can do that in a lot of different ways. And if you have interest in that, you can check out our website, www.dmdirectionmotivation.com, all right? And the reason for this is because churches are wasting so much money, all right? Average youth pastors, they're not making a ton of money. They're making 30,000. Some churches that I'm close to make 40, 45, 50. It depends. It's all up and down all over. With that being said, I would also challenge church leaders to quit treating youth pastors as if it's a step down from the senior pastor, okay? That's a really bad thing to do. Okay, their ministry is just as important, if not, more than important, in my opinion, than what anyone else in the church does. Okay, they are reaching young people at a level in their moments of faith that are so crucial. It's crucial. And when you have this idea that a youth pastor position is supposed to be a stepping stone to become a senior pastor, we're doing a lot of harm in the church. And that's why most churches can't keep good youth pastors, because they're so conditioned into believing that they're supposed to be, senior pastors, that they're supposed to climb the corporate ladder. That's not the case. And so because of this, a lot of churches lose good youth pastors, and a lot of youth pastors end up getting burnt out as senior pastors because that's never what their true calling was supposed to be. And I understand this quite well. So with that being said, talking today, I believe you don't need to fire your youth pastor to make your youth ministry better. There's things that I think you could do and should do to really break the narrative that's being created. Okay? So it's not the job of the youth pastor to save your kids. It's not the job of the youth pastor to change your kids. It's the job of the youth pastor to reveal Jesus to your young people in hopes that they make a decision to follow him. That's it. And there's great community in that. So let's get rid of that narrative first off. All right. With that being said, let's talk about churches. All right. Let's talk about structures. All right. I know a church in Frisco, Texas that fired their youth pastor because he grew the youth ministry from like 120 kids to like 300. But it didn't result in parents becoming members and tithing. Now, I'm going to tell you very bluntly that if your church is built on the expectation that the youth that come to your church, that their parents, that the whole agenda is that their parents would become members and tithe, to me, that's disgusting. My hope is that these young people would become members and that their family would come and that they would become converts that love Jesus and that they would become members of your church and eventually they would tithe. I hope that'd be the it factor. I hope that would be awesome. But many churches believe that it's the youth pastor's job to grow the church by reaching young people and in result, reaching their families, which become active members of the church. If your agenda as leaders for your youth pastor is that, you need to remove yourself from anything to do with youth ministry. Do you understand that? That's never the end goal. It's never the end goal. The end goal is not to gain new people in the church. It's not. Now, that sounds backwards because you'll take that as making disciples. No, I don't take that as making disciples. If your end goal is making disciples, then you are satisfied with the youth pastor having that young person in his midst. That's a fact. You're excited about that young person discovering Jesus. You're excited about that young person being baptized. You're excited about that young person accepting Christ in their heart. You're excited about that. You're so excited that if nothing else happens, that's okay. But unfortunately, in the church world, that's often not enough. And you're setting these horrible expectations up for your youth pastor, which is only going to stress him out. And that stress is not going to allow him to operate the way that he needs to be able to operate freely in what God has called him to be. You do yourself a disservice when you set up false expectations for what a youth pastor is supposed to do and what he's supposed to be. I'll say it like this. In a church that I recently interviewed for, not the one I'm at right now, this was before this, calm down. In a church that I interviewed for, my question to them was this: will my success be dependent upon how many people are in the seats? Does that define me as a pastor? Does that define me by whether I'm good or not? Because if it does, I don't want to be a part of your congregation. I don't want to do those things. I want to be a part of a congregation that loves me for me and my heart for the Lord and my heart for reaching these young people. Yes, I can't be lazy. No, I got to make an effort. Yes, I need to be in the community. But my success is not dependent upon how many people sit in the pews. Rather than my success is dependent on the passion that I pour into these young people through the theological accuracies of his word. If I disciple 5 people every Wednesday night, and that's all I have, but I'm discipling them, I am successful. Now, we continue to reach. We continue to try to pursue other young people. But when churches have this idea that success in a youth ministry is only dependent on how many people are in pews on a Wednesday night or a Sunday night, we have failed. Once again, this has become the battle of comparison, and we must get out of it. The next thing I want to talk about is experience. Youth pastors have to understand what an experience is for young people. The experiences allow young people to really thrive in a space. When a young person comes into a place, what is their experience? Is it quiet? Is it just boring? Is anything going on? Experiences build a platform for relationships. If a young person comes into a great experience, they can have a great relationship opportunity with others. If everyone's having a good time and everybody's hanging out and everybody's jiving, then everybody starts to talk. And those relationships begin to build. And if they have experience and they have relationship, we have the opportunity to bring discipleship to the table. It's not the other way around. And that's where we messed up. A lot of youth pastors think that kids want to circle up and just open the Bible and read it. That sounds awful. That's going to be boring. Don't do it. You know, people made fun of me because I would, try to create these contests. We would give away Nintendo Switches and things of that nature. And someone said, all you do is try to buy kids. Yeah, that's kind of true. I mean, I'm not going to lie. My whole idea was if we could get young people to the door, maybe they could, know Jesus. The idea that they came from a Nintendo Switch, but now they're leaving with knowing about this man named Jesus. I feel like that's a fair trade. I'm going to be honest with you. And I do it every day of the week. Every day. Because eventually they're not falling in love with the lights or the smoke or the Nintendo Switch. They're falling in love with Jesus. But churches have this horrible idea, like this super religious idea, that all young people need is the Bible. All young people need is Jesus. Technically, that is true in some capacities. But no, it's not going to work that way. And when churches don't pour into a youth budget and they don't allow the youth pastor to be what he's called to be and to have the vision that he's called to have, it can create terrible friction. Just terrible friction. And this is why youth consulting is so important, because it allows a middleman to come in and look at everything, to really meet with your leadership, to meet with the pastor, to meet with the youth pastor and his family, to meet with the staff, to have these conversations, to see what's working, to see what's not working, to see what needs to be working, and being able to break all these things down, to understand your strengths and weaknesses, And so for me, churches can either invest $3,000 to $4,000 to bring in a youth ministry consulting firm in to do these things, or they can fire the youth pastor, spend a ton of money on trying to find a new replacement. And then on top of that, pay another guy that might stay for 1 or 2 years. That's literally the data, right? The average youth pastor lasts 2 years at a church now. It's crazy. But I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect? So I hope that you understand, if you're watching this, if you're a youth pastor today, you're successful not based upon the number of kids in the seats. You're more than enough. You should also have a passion to keep growing. You should have a passion to be in your community. You should have a passion to, change their worlds. But pastors and leaders, parents, you have to understand that it's not the youth pastor's job to save these kids. It's not. It's the parents' jobs. And pastors and leaders, you have to understand that you can't fire your youth pastor just because he's not bringing in residuals, he's not bringing in the parents with the kids. I mean, that's stupid. You can't set that unfair expectation up. It's not right. It's not worth hurting these youth pastors that way. My hope is that they reach the kids and that the parents do come. My hope is that it starts a revival in your community. But I think we also have to understand that just because the youth ministry down the road has 60 kids and yours may have 10, it doesn't mean that yours is unsuccessful compared to the other church. What if you had the next Billy Graham in your youth ministry? What if? There's a possibility. We need to quit looking around and having these holy wars. And we really need to start focusing in on who we have and be grateful for their service. And if it's not up to par, bring someone like my team in. Do something that's going to benefit everyone involved. Because the best future that you have is the one that's right in front of you. And I promise you, your youth pastor's enough. They're enough. Just take a chance on them. Do some little different things that could help. I promise you, you won't regret it. Because we're living in a generation right now, if you have a youth pastor that's willing to invest their time, talents, and giftings into these young people, they're heroes in my eyes. So, today, I hope you know you're blessed beyond measure. I hope your church is blessed. I hope your youth ministry is blessed. I hope you know that you're enough. You've been listening to the Direction Motivation Podcast. I'm Tyler Watson. We'll see you next week.